There are some homes for sale on the Ottawa market right now that I would not wish on my worst enemy. But many buyers have no idea what it is that they're walking into. I have toured hundreds, probably thousands of homes in the Ottawa area at this point, and if I notice one of these hard to spot issues, I know that it's probably not worth it. And while there will always be exceptions to this rule, today I'm going to break down the 6 things that if I were to see them in a home, I would walk away almost immediately. And I'm also going to talk about some of the red flags that I look for so you can potentially identify some of these issues early. Most of these issues are going to come up on a professional home inspection, but it can be nice to save yourself the $500 to $700 by spotting it on your own right away. The first thing I'm always looking for when I'm looking at the interior of a house and we go into the utility room is Kitech plumbing. Now this plumbing is really distinct. It can be identified because it's really brightly colored, usually a brighter blue or an orange. You're probably most likely to see it in the utility room next to the furnace and hot water tank, or next to wherever the water main comes into the house. If you see this type of plumbing and it hasn't been replaced throughout the rest of the house, you are going to want to run from this place or negotiate a big decrease in the price because this is something that you are going to have to replace. The thing about Kitech plumbing is it deteriorates all at once with like tiny little holes, and you can't just replace like the fittings or sections of pipe. The whole system is going to have to be redone, and you're very quickly going to be into the tens of thousands of dollars to do that for the entire house. So keep an eye out for Kitech plumbing, and if you see it, it is a major concern. Now, the first item was plumbing. The second item I'm always looking out for is older electrical that hasn't been remedied. So there's 2 main types of electrical that are a problem, I would say. The first one, that's the biggest problem, is knob and tube wiring. If you see knob and tube wiring, this is a super old style of wiring that is a huge fire hazard, and you're going to have a lot of trouble getting insurance if you can find it at all. More than likely, any insurer that you're dealing with is going to ask you to replace the knob and tube wiring, which is going to be a significant expense. The second type of wiring that's a lot more common, it was very common in kind of the 60s and 70s before they switched back to copper, was aluminum wiring. Now, aluminum wiring is not as much of a disaster as the knob and tube. The knob and tube, you see it, you pretty much have to replace it right away. The aluminum wiring, as long as they have had an electrician come in and pigtail the aluminum wiring with copper at the ends where it connects with the light switches and the outlets, then you're okay and you'll be able to get insurance. So if this is something that's been done and they can provide you with an ESA certificate to show that it's been done, you're probably good to go with the aluminum wiring. But if you see aluminum wiring and it hasn't been dealt with, this is something you are going to have to either negotiate or it's a reason to walk away. The third thing that I look out for, it's a little less common than the other 2, but it is something that you still see from time to time, particularly in older homes or rural homes, is oil tanks. So oil furnaces, oil heating that's still functional, or decommissioned oil tanks. So these are an issue because they're relatively inefficient compared to the more modern stuff if they're still using the oil furnace. And even if they're not still using them, if there's a decommissioned oil tank there, it can be a big issue from an environmental perspective. It's a huge pain to get rid of. And if any of that oil gets into the surrounding soil or anything like that, you can start running into environmental issues, which will be a huge, huge costly problem. So if you see a massive oil tank, whether it's functional or not, that's something that should be a red flag for you, and that's something you should ask your realtor and the seller to investigate further, for sure. The fourth type of home that I'm always either trying to avoid or I'm very skeptical of are properties that are flips, especially if they were flipped by somebody who was not a qualified contractor, which was pretty common. Especially over the pandemic years in the early 2020s when things were constantly, like prices were constantly going up in value, it was very common for somebody to buy an older house, put, a superficial coat of paint on it, lipstick on a pig kind of thing. Like they would redo maybe the flooring, they would redo some tile, some paint, basically just make everything on the outside look okay, but do nothing to remedy the issues underneath. They knew that a lot of the offers coming in were coming in with no home inspection condition, so they were just doing the work as cheaply as possible and then flipping them to make a huge profit. So when I see flips, I am very skeptical. If someone's in love with a house that I think is a flip, we are going to be very, very hard on the home inspection, and it's something that I'll often advise buyers to walk away from or be very cautious with because It's not a house that somebody has lived in for years and taken pride in ownership in. It's an investment that somebody was trying to buy, flip, and get rid of for a profit as quickly as possible. They don't really care about the next owner. Number 5, and this is a little more common in Ottawa because we have such a rich history as the nation's capital, is historical homes or homes with a heritage designation. Now, these homes are often really beautiful, they're often in great locations, and they're often fairly expensive, but they can become a massive pain if you want to do anything to make the house your own. There are usually really strict restrictions as to what you can do with the place, both on the inside and the outside. If you want to make any sort of significant renovation, there are a whole bunch of hoops you have to jump through, and it's something that, unless it's something you're really passionate about and something you really care about, you should probably avoid if you can. And number 6, this one's a little more broad and probably a little more obvious, but it's issues with the location of the house. It's really easy when you walk into a house for the first time to get really fixated on like how great the lot is or how great the interior finishes are. But it's really, really important to take a look at where the lot is situated and what's nearby. A good habit to get into is before you go and look at a house, look up the property on Google Maps and zoom out a little bit. That's the kind of thing that will tell you whether or not you're close to a highway, close to a railroad track. I've heard of one case recently from a colleague where a client bought a place and he had only gone to see the place on the weekends and realized when he went to take possession of the house or do the final walkthrough on a weekday that there was a business right across the road where their job was just like chopping up wood, and it was just super noisy all the time during the week, and you only got a break during the weekends. So those are the sorts of things, the sort of environmental neighborhood factors that your realtor is going to have to watch out for. But it's something you can also take a look at to make sure you don't get into a really nice house that's in a really inopportune location. So that's something to keep an eye out for. I hope you found some value in today's video. If you did, please like and subscribe so the video finds its way to more people just like yourself. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.